Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Thank you for coming out today. Beautiful day for an event. At this time, I would like to invite Tim Eyman, the next governor of Washington State, to the stage.
Well, this is cool. Hey, thanks, everybody. I want to get this up. That works. Everybody hear me? All right. Hey, this is awesome. Hey, well, thanks very much. I appreciate everybody coming out. Yeah, let's hear it. Everybody who likes Jay Inslee, show of hands. Oh, man, not even one? No. He is my new campaign manager, I think, is Jay Inslee. Every day he's got a new idea to get me into the governor's mansion. So Jay Inslee, he's one of my favorite people right now. So I want to just go ahead and open it up to questions first, and then I'll speak a little bit later. But just anything at all you want to ask about, it's a lot more fun when it's more interactive. So anybody at all? I saw a hand, I thought. Dawn, good to see you. It's like, hey, I know how tough it is because we're all oh, there you go. Let's see it, Don. It's a great question. What he asked was, there's a lot of people running, and so that's going to dilute the vote. So is there something maybe the RNC is going to do about it, or what are we going to do about that? And on the Democrat side, they could pretty much threaten you and destroy your family. So the Democrats are very, very unified when it comes to basically being able to threaten them to keep them out of a race. Republicans tend to believe in this thing called free will, and people having the freedom to run for office if they want to, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And so there's actually, Don said, there's 10 people running. There's 37 people running for governor. 37. So Jay Inslee's one of them. He'll be one of the people. And then somebody else is going to get the second largest number of votes. And so Don asks, why doesn't somebody sit these people down and talk to them and kind of work something out? And that is the smoke-filled room of yesteryear. And we just don't have that system anymore. We now have a system where if you want more votes, go out and earn them. And so the way I'm running this campaign is that I could just ride on the stuff I've done for 22 years, but I didn't want to do that. I actually want to accomplish something while running. And so it's a different approach, something totally different. There is a rule also that you never name your opponent during your campaign. And I've broken that rule because I bring up Inslee every single moment I can because he is absolutely the best campaign manager a guy could ever hope for because he's just screwing up every day. So with that, another question? Anybody at all? It's you, sir.
Okay, so I certainly don't mean this disrespectfully, but briefly, could you respond to how the people who accuse you of violating campaign finance law?
Absolutely. What's really neat about this is I've been doing political activism for about 22 years. And during those 22 years, all of our initiatives, they've saved the taxpayers about $43 billion during that period of time. I meet people all the time. How much did you save on your car tabs? And they'll say 10,000, 15,000, those kinds of things. And every time I run one of these campaigns, they come up with more stuff to throw at me. And I would just make the observation that if my initiatives had raised taxes $43 billion, I would not be attacked. I'd be getting government subsidies. I'd be getting awards. The only reason I get attacked by the other side is because we've been effective at limiting the government's power. When it comes to my paperwork for my campaigns over the years, one of the things that's funny about this aspect of things is that it's never the supporters of my initiatives that are complaining. It's only the opponents. For me, it's Bob Ferguson. There you go. It's all good. It's all good. But it's Bob Ferguson that has a big problem with all the things that I've done over the years, and so he's been suing me for about 7 years. 7 years of investigation, 7 years of litigation, and his lawsuit seeks a lifetime ban on all future political activity. Now, I'm 53 years old. Now, that would mean that 20 years from now, 40 years from now, I would not be able to be politically active in the state of Washington. It's a lifetime ban. That kind of tells me what the motivation behind all the attacks are. It really isn't about the paperwork. It's about the fact that we've been effective at actually fighting for the taxpayers and getting them lower taxes. So the short answer to your question is every single candidate who runs is going to get attacked. There is no such thing as the perfect candidate. If you're looking for the perfect candidate, good luck with that, because anybody who is perfect isn't going to go near politics if their life depended on it. You got to be a little demented, a little off, little Louie. But honestly, what drew me into this race was that $30 tabs initiative that passed for the third time, and instead of implementing it, Jay Inslee ended up saying, "You were confused. You were confused by that one." And he refused to implement that initiative. And it's so frustrating to me, and it really got me off my duff to do something I said I would never do, and that's to run for office. And running for governor, when I first got into the race, I went, you know what? This guy has really made people mad. He's raised taxes 30 times. He's raised taxes $50 billion after promising to veto any tax increase. I think he's pretty vulnerable. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the race. And I kept waiting for that moment where I went, this wasn't a good idea. This was a bad idea. I haven't had any buyer's remorse ever, because every day more and more people like yourself jump on the Tim train and help be able to fight back. But then when this COVID thing did, and he shut down the state and said certain people are essential, certain people aren't, and Mr. Legigoire there was unfortunately one of those that was considered non-essential in the car dealer business. There's so many people that end up getting shafted by that, and I felt like I needed to represent the non-essential people, the ones that aren't getting any kind of voice right now. So it's a big battle and a big fight. I'm enjoying it, but it's let's open it up to some more questions, anything at all. Yes, young lady.
Thanks. So, here, hold on.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm trying to Facebook Live my friends. So with the governor of South Dakota opening up completely and letting everybody do the 4th of July stuff, and our
churches
and our governor is like, nope, thumbs down, you guys can't do anything, and obviously we're going to have another spike because people are going to be gathering and stuff. What's your actual take? Like, if you were governor, would you keep your thumb on our county still because we don't vote for Inslee? Because that's what it comes down to.
It really does. And her question, for those of you who didn't hear it, is the South Dakota governor. Now, the South Dakota governor is my model of the kind of governor I would be. And she is an amazing, amazing governor, because she made this amazing observation. She looked at her state constitution, and she couldn't find anywhere in there the power to shut down a private business. I just thought that was revolutionary. Jay Inslee squinted, looked at our state constitution, was able to find that power somewhere in there, and he did that. The South Dakota governor would be my model, because what she talked about, she's one of 4 states that not doing this mandatory mask thing. She was one of the few states that didn't shut down her state at all. And what she found was, and the word she used was, I'm going to count on people's common sense, South Dakotans. I'm going to count on personal responsibility, and I'm going to try and persuade people. I'm going to try and convince people that this is what they ought to do. I'm going to give them information, but I'm going to treat them like adults. Now, that is a totally appropriate thing to do. We have 7 million people in the state of Washington. I have no interest in running your life. I have my hands full running my own. I trust people. I trust 7 million people. Jay Inslee sees 7 million children, and he wants to run everybody's life and micromanage every aspect of it. When I heard that you couldn't sing in church unless you wore a mask, I thought we are just off the deep end. He's micromanaging that much of our lives. This mask requirement in this 3.5-page list of things, he says it's okay to take it off when you sleep. Thanks, Jay, for letting me know that I could take it off when I go to sleep. So it is a 90-day time in jail and a $1,000 fine if you're not wearing the mask when he says to wear the mask. Come and get me. Ew, ornery. I was born and raised Yakima, and so and I went to Wazoo. This is a surly side of the state. I love that about it. And the idea of him mandating it, I just thought to myself, what can he do to boost my numbers in my home county of Yakima? When he said everyone's got to wear a mask, I was like, all right, I just went to 90%. So I don't want him to be doing this stuff. It's really infringing on our rights. We're doing a lot of lawsuits to try and overturn a lot of this stuff. But at the end of the day, he is probably helping my campaign more than you could ever imagine. And I don't like that he's doing it, but you make lemonade out of lemons. I saw another hand over there. Who was it? Yes, this young lady. You're a plant for the Democrats, I can tell.
Well, if Inslee's gonna be gone, so, what would you do if you were governor?
Wow. Awesome question. What would I do as governor? All right, so, okay, I would just say this. Imagine on election night, I'm standing at the podium and I'm giving my acceptance speech. And you've seen me win this election by the same percentage that the voters just voted for $30 tabs last November. 53-47. Losing the vote in Seattle, duh. But people outside of Seattle all voting overwhelmingly for me, and you're all having discussions with one another. How did he win? How did he pull it off? What did he do for the last couple of months? And honestly, what you're all going to say is Inslee made it easy for him. Inslee gave it to him. Of course he won. How could he not have won? Did you see how Inslee treated people over the last couple of months? He just kept, like a boa constrictor, restricting our rights more and more and more, and he kept believing the headlines that say everybody loves Inslee, and he believes his own press releases that everyone's loving it, and more people are coming to the realization this is all just a bunch of crap. It's just a gross overreaction to what was clearly a challenge. COVID was absolutely a challenge. It didn't have to be a crisis, though. He's the one who made it into a crisis. And the media says this all the time. I know our economy is struggling because of the COVID outbreak. And I say that is a lie. It is not COVID that is causing this. It is Inslee's gross overreaction to it. But to answer her question directly is, what would I do as governor after I won? It's going to take me more than 4 years to clean up the mess that he's absolutely created in the last 8 years. It's going to take me more than 4 years to clean up the mess the Democrats have made over the last 35 years. But I absolutely would be committed to listening to people, to allowing citizens to live their life as they see fit. I will try and persuade people that there's certain things we ought to do, but I'm not going to replace Inslee with conservative mandates and dictates. I'm going to allow representative democracy to actually work, and he's kind of annoyed with the idea of elected representatives making decisions, laws being made through the process. I just fundamentally believe you don't elect somebody to rule your life. You're supposed to be electing somebody to represent the people. And so that's what I've been doing for 22 years as an activist. It's exactly the kind of governor I would be. So, and I love the sign, Jay, away, fly away. God, I love that. You, sir, with the hand up and the camera that I broke earlier.
Okay, so I'm a guy that deals with numbers. I'm an accountant. Have you outlined in your own head an audit plan that includes jail time?
Here's a good one. I think it's really important for people to realize that Jay Inslee, besides shafting all these people when it comes to essential versus non-essential, he didn't just screw up our lives, he screwed up government itself. State government, local governments, they are gasping for revenue right now. And what he's done is he's made us less safe. The whole idea of this thing was supposedly supposed to make us better off. But by stripping away our liberty, lowering our economy, he's made us less safe. And the reality is our $53 billion budget, this massive budget that he passed in March, is now going to be down to $40 billion. There's been this massive reduction in revenues. And going into the next legislative session, it's simply going to be a debate over, do we raise taxes or do we prioritize spending with existing revenues? And for 22 years, I've seen governments do it both ways. A bunch of governments under the Democrats raised taxes, and they extended the bad times into worse times. But I've also done initiatives that made it where it was impossible for them to raise taxes. And before the Great Recession, and actually this is one of my proudest achievements, of all the initiatives we've done over the years, you can quantify your $30 tabs. It's very easy to calculate. You know how much you spent for car tabs. You remove the number 30. That's how much you saved, how much you've done. How much have you saved from that making it tougher for them to raise taxes? How many taxes did we stop from occurring? I am so proud of this thing. It's 2007. 2007, there was a cycle where Democrats had raised a bunch of taxes in 2005 and 2006. And so we ended up passing an initiative that said it should take a 2/3 vote of the legislature to raise any tax. Supermajority to raise taxes. It passed in 2007. In 2008 and 2009, we had the Great Recession. And literally the government got smaller. But during that time, with overwhelming control of the House and the Senate, Gregoire and the Democrats didn't raise a single tax during that time. Not even one. They wanted to. They were itching to. But we had passed a law that said, effectively, the only way you can raise taxes is to get the Republicans to go along with it. So for 2 years, they did not raise taxes. They prioritized spending with existing revenue. I am certain, beyond all certainty, if we hadn't done that initiative, we would have an income tax today because they would have said it's an emergency, we have to do it. So that is a real-life world example where they can prioritize spending and use existing revenues. They don't have to raise taxes, and I would be somebody that would say, okay, we've got $40 billion. Let's prioritize our spending using $40 billion. Let's not think that raising taxes is somehow going to make things better. It's clearly going to make things worse. So Jay Inslee, for the next 4 years, if he gets reelected, carbon taxes, income taxes, pay-per-mile taxes, it'd be a debate over which ones you raise. With me, I would absolutely hold the line and make sure not a single tax increase ever passes. So anyway, that's a big difference. Yeah. Anybody at all? Yes, you young lady.
Thanks for coming over to Tri-Cities. I have kind of a two-part question. I'm interested with COVID and the devastation that the protesters did to the west side. It's going to take years, maybe decades, to recover from that. So do you have any plans of how you would have addressed and assisted the governor to address the CHOP situation before it destroyed the city?
Is that great? Oh,
I have part two, sorry.
Yeah,
and I'm just curious what you think about the educational system and what your feelings are on diversifying opportunities and looking into charter schools so people really have a choice to find the best thing that works for them and not be succumbing to increased labor union situations.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
I'm going to do the second one first. Keep it by her in the event that I try and dodge her question, because I may forget the first one. But as far as the teachers are concerned, I don't know about you, but I have a much higher appreciation for teachers than I've ever had before. Because during this time, while we've been locked down, we were forced to suddenly become teachers. And I don't know about you, but I'm a really crappy teacher. I don't know what I'm doing. I wasn't trained to be a teacher. Trying to keep your kids, try and focus them, and try and teach them. Our teachers, I think we appreciate them more today than we've ever have before. And I would make sure that out of that $40 billion that our teachers continue to get paid the money that they're worth, because I think they are doing yeoman's work for us. Now, I love my kids. I like them better when they're in school. Uh, I loved having him around, but come on, this is like nuts. So this lockdown was the biggest illustration that in-person teaching is critical. This idea you can Zoom your education to your kids. I mean, give me a break. I mean, I was quoting a news story in Wenatchee where they said 20% of kids weren't even participating in the Zoom teaching. And my brother, who's a teacher in Yakima, said, Tim, you have no idea. You have no idea. For my classes, it's 80 or 90% not participating. And he goes, do you know why? And you need to tell people this, Tim, because they will not believe it, but then they'll believe it. Jay Inslee, when he shut down the schools, I don't know if you remember this or not, he said, kids, your grades aren't going to go down during this time. Your grades aren't going to go down whether you participate in this teaching process or not. If you're a kid and you're told whether you do your homework or not, don't worry, your grades aren't going to go down. How motivated are you to actually do your homework? You have none. This is one of the many things that Jay Inslee did that people can't even get their minds wrapped around how stupid some of the things that he's said over the years. When it comes to the shutdown, we'll come back to that, but when he sends in 200 National Guardsmen unarmed, and what were they instructed to do? Direct traffic. You can't even make this stuff up. It is just so stupid and dumb. But with the teachers, the big thing that I would advocate is that, and a thing I'm very, very proud of, is that during this campaign, we've done a lot of lawsuits. We sued Inslee in federal court, in state court, and county courts. The biggest accomplishment we did was we sued to open up the schools now. And what happened was we brought it in Lewis County Superior Court. They ended up seeing it. They said, oh, we wanted it in Thurston County Superior Court, so they had a little delay. The day before we filed it the second time, Inslee said, we're going to open the schools this fall. They were talking about January and maybe a lot later. And talking to our attorney, he said, when your opponent throws in the white flag, that's the best victory because you don't have to spend money on me. You've just now made them crack right there. So open up schools. Yeah. It's a really, really big deal. Now, it's nuts. It's nuts what they're talking about, what requiring their kids to do, but at least we're going through that craziness in the fall, and we got to just get through it until we can get a new governor in there. But the requirements are nuts, but it's better for us to be sending our kids to school than keeping them at home because they weren't getting any education at all. As far as the Lawless zone, I am personally against all these cute, clever acronyms. Is it CHOP? Is it CHAZ? I mean, these are like names of cute people and stuff. I called it Inslee's Lawless Zone. And it's a lawless zone. I went down there, actually, and I was wearing these stickers, and I was actually dressed almost like this. So I kind of stood out in this group. And I had one guy with me, and so I'm walking around. And it was right after Inslee said, that's news to me, it even existed. A reporter asked him, so what do you think about this 6 blocks where they just have taken over? He goes, well, that's news to me. So he didn't even know what's happening in his own state. So I knew that, hey, I want to go down there and find out what's the deal. Is it really happening? Is it really they seceded from America and they ended up saying that we're a different country, and it was just so crazy. So I went down there to see it and actually experience it. And it was just lawless. It was just absolutely nuts. Now, they recognized me immediately. Lots of FU Eymans, lots of FU Eymans. I'm used to that. Pretty standard stuff. They said take the hate speech off your shirt. Those $30 tabs was hate speech, apparently. And Tim Eyman running for governor was hate speech. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And they kept telling me to leave. And I said, well, I'm here to listen. You guys say that nobody's listening to you. I'm here to listen. So a lot of FUs. And I just kept saying, no, I'm not leaving. And the contrast is so amazing. They weren't used to ever hearing the word no from anybody. The Seattle governor was never saying no. Is 6 blocks enough? Would you like 7? Would that be okay? I mean, everybody was appeasing them and authorizing them to do this lawless behavior. And I fundamentally bring it back to Inslee. If Inslee hadn't shut down the state, all the businesses would still be having commerce. There's not a lot of lawlessness when there's commerce going on, when there are people on the streets. When you turn the entire state into a dark alley and no one's walking around, that's when the lawless element is able to come back into it. So the best way to solve a problem is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And the second thing I would say is that you don't solve a problem by just ignoring it and saying it doesn't exist. Better to confront it head on, tell people no if that's what your answer is, but at least give them the respect that they deserve to go up to them and say, I don't agree with what you're doing. And that was my moment where I had like 15 seconds to say something intelligent. And I just said, you obviously disagree with my politics, but we live in a free country where we can disagree with one another and still be respectful of one another. And that's when they started F you, and it was intellectually challenging for me to respond to that. Young lady, apparently a follow-up question. She's grilling me brutally. Actually, George, this young lady, and then I'll come back to the, because she was really hard questions.
Hey, George. Hi, though. So my question, well, first comment, this mask mandate feels like not only personal rights infringement, but also medical rights infringement. It's opened the door for violating HIPAA and the ADA laws and things like that. I fought for medical rights freedoms for the last 8 years and have faced discrimination on that front as well for a long time. So my question is, do you see the mask mandates being a precursor for vaccine mandates, and where do you stand on medical freedom issues with regard to so-called public health?
Thank you very much for asking that. Actually, tomorrow we're filing a lawsuit in Thurston County Superior Court challenging the mask mandate. And the reason we're doing that is it constitutional for a governor to do this? I have the opinion, I don't see it in the Constitution, but let's at least have our judiciary take a look at it and evaluate it. And the reason I'm so frustrated with our governor is that we have an inefficient government when you're making decisions, when you have to have 147 representatives from all over the state, all having a voice in your government. You have to put up with these public hearings where you hear regular people talking to you and highlighting what you're proposing is dumb. And it's just frustrating when you've got all that public involvement. It's just so much easier if you just have one person making everyone's decision. It's just cleaner, it's simpler, and if you're a power-hungry governor, it's just awesome. Because you just wake up one day and you go, you know what? I've decided no one can fish. And he can do something like that because he holds a press conference, and all these media people start asking him questions, and he's going, wow, I just feel great about myself today because I decided nobody can fish today. And that's the rules today unless I change my mind tomorrow. And the whole idea of representative democracy is not to have efficient government, but to have representative government where it has to go through a process. And I cannot get my mind wrapped around a lot of these ideas that he's doing because in a public hearing, it would never go anywhere, some of these goofy ideas that he does. I mean, we would ridicule any of these ideas, and legislators would go, well, I ain't voting for that. That's nuts. We can only take off our masks when we sleep. Is that really in your legislation? And so my frustration with this governor is the fact that he's unilaterally making all decisions for 7 million people. And I would not do that. I would say, hey, if you want to wear a mask, if you think that's good for you and your family, please do that. A lot of people believe in it. And if they want that, let them do that. If other people don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. It's your choice to be able to do that. But there's another aspect of this. You were talking about the mandatory vaccinations, and I was asked this question yesterday. We launched a local initiative in the city of SeaTac to end facial recognition technology that they're about to implement at the airport. And it's, It's one of the many things that Inslee did this legislative session, and we're trying to overturn that with this local initiative. And a woman asked me the exact same question, and I don't want to be flippant about this, but it's a serious point. Everyone who runs for office, you should really not believe anything they say. You really shouldn't. They're running for office. What you should look at is what have they done for the last, in my case, 22 years, and what are they actually doing while running? Now, every initiative I've ever done has been limiting government's power. Every one of them. Limits on affirmative action, limits on car tabs, limits on red light ticketing cameras, limits on all those kinds of things. During this as I've run for governor, I'm saying that we need to open up our schools. We need to do so many of the idea of essential versus non-essential is clearly against our Constitution. Would a person that has done all that, does it sound like the kind of person that would say, I want to empower the government to mandate everybody do anything? And that just isn't in my DNA. I'm a Yakima boy. Yakima boys are very fiercely conservative and individualistic. And so you should look at what I do and not so much what I say as I run for office. And I say that to all the other candidates as well. And but to answer your question directly, I would try and persuade people to do things that I thought were good for them. But if they didn't want to do it, I'm not going to say, 90 days in jail, $1,000 fine if you don't listen to me. I personally think that this is a sign of how weak and insecure Jay Inslee is. I mean, he's weak. I mean, this is what a bully does. This is how bullies act on a playground. They literally are so insecure about the idea of some people not listening to them that they have to force it and say, you know what? We need to bring in police power to enforce everybody listening to me because I'm all important. And that, the very concept of it, I can't even call him a Democrat anymore. I don't even put him on the political spectrum anymore because he is acting like no representative we've ever had before, regardless of party. So anyway, yes, you in the back. Tia.
I want to follow up with her question about medical.
Yeah.
I myself had an extremely horrifying experience about 5 years ago in the hospital, and it came to my attention that patients have no rights in Washington State. I found out the hard way. I tried to sue, and I found out that there is no malpractice rights in Washington State. You cannot sue in Washington State. So that means doctors can come here and they can practice on you, and there's no accountability for them here whatsoever. It's pretty scary. With this medical issue, this COVID crap, they want to mandate vaccines. They want to mandate contact and tracing. You can't sue the doctors. They won't let you have visitors in the hospital, which is really scary, because if you are in the hospital and nobody can keep an eye on you, they can do anything they want to you, which is terrifying. And I think that's what happened over in New York to their
You better get to your question, Tia.
people. I'm sorry. Many years ago, there was a bill that came out that almost passed about being able to sue doctors for malpractice. Is there any way of resurrecting that bill, or could you write another bill? You're so good at bills. Patients need rights in Washington State. We need to hold doctors and hospitals accountable for how we're treated, and nursing homes too.
There is. I'm the initiative guy. I'm the $30 tabs guy. I've been doing initiatives for 22 years, and I can't force anybody to vote for our initiatives. But I respect the fact that voters will vote for ideas sometimes that I disagree with, but I'm still willing to accept that that's what the voters did. I remember one time one of our initiatives went down in flames, and they said, well, what do you chalk it up to? And I said, well, apparently I designed an initiative where a majority of voters weren't in favor of it. And I remember the media was just like, I don't get it. You're not blaming somebody. And it's like, well, no. I mean, it's like, it's my fault. I didn't draft it in a way that addressed the concerns that people had. There was an initiative in 2005 where the lawyers put forward an initiative that said we should make it easier to sue doctors. And the voters rejected that idea. And so I would be disinclined to go in that direction simply because the voters had already voted on it. So not able to pander on that particular issue. But I think it's an important point to remember what a governor does. A governor, the way it's supposed to be set up, is I get to decide which bills get vetoed and which ones don't. And I can stop a lot of crap. For the last 8 years, every legislative session, there are 3,000 bills. Every session, 3,000. About 500 of them become law every year. That means that 500 times 8 years of Inslee in office is 4,000 laws that were passed under Jay Inslee. Now, I would say upwards of probably 80 or 90% of those I probably would have vetoed because they were all expansions of government power. That is what they've been doing for the last 8 years. They haven't been restraining government. They've been expanding government. And so I will be able to stop a lot of bad stuff. Attacks on our Second Amendment rights, which have been under assault all 8 years under Bob Ferguson and Jay Inslee. And I think during this time, we've learned that we really need our Second Amendment rights during these emergencies, and the idea that they would restrict that is really bad. Attacks on the First Amendment, vetoing any tax increase. There's so many expansions. I would want to set a Guinness Book of World Records for vetoing the most pieces of legislation out of any state government. That would be my goal. It would be a nice thing to aspire to. But I think they'd start to get the idea that, you know what? We're not going to get a lot of stuff signed by Tim Eyman, our governor, because he doesn't want the government getting bigger. He actually wants to restrain them and put them under our normal system of government. So if I want to actually pass something as governor, I would be perfectly willing to sponsor an initiative. And Arnold Schwarzenegger did this in California, as it turns out, and he pushed these initiatives, and the voters rejected a bunch of them. And then what he did was he gave up, and he started working with the liberals, and he ended up just giving up on it. Me, I would go, what are you talking about? Just go back, try again. So if you want something from your government and you're not getting it from the Democrat-controlled legislature, you got to do it through the citizen initiative process. Don't expect me to just one day say, I will declare this shall be the law today, because Jay Inslee's given us 8 years of that. So I don't want to go in that direction. Yes, sir. I got you. Oh, okay.
Hey, could you speak to what you would do to bring more businesses into Washington State, to make our business climate more friendly, such that small and large companies would come here from other places or even start new businesses?
It really is a good question. What can I do to be able to drive our economy? Because, boy, we're going to need it. And Jay Inslee has made that relatively easy. I mean, elect me governor, and I will open up Washington immediately. All businesses would be essential. We would all be able to do commerce. I would advise you to be able to be safe and take care of your customers. But I'd be insulting your intelligence because, of course, you're automatically going to protect your customers. It's not good for commerce to have an unsafe environment. So the idea that business needs something from the government in order to do commerce, you just need to get government out of the way and allow business to do what they do best, which is to service their customers. But I would do one other thing that I would be very, very proud of, is that the Seattle City Council yesterday, as they're cleaning up the lawless zone, and finally they got off their duffs and decided to make it a lawful zone again, they decided to pass a big, massive tax increase on all the people that are employing people right now, and on a per employee basis, a per head tax, a jobs tax. Now, normally, a governor just says, I'm in charge of state government, local government, they can do anything they want. But Seattle is a very, very important economy to us. It's kind of the engine of our state, and if they throw a monkey wrench into it, it ain't good for anybody. So I would be perfectly comfortable going in there and doing laws that would put restrictions on local governments that are so completely communist and socialistic, and making where they can't do things that inhibit commerce. And if it takes a local initiative to do it, or a statewide initiative, but one way or another, you can't have government in the midst of this kind of horrible situation, making it harder for us to get out of this hole that Inslee has put us in. So I would not just be the governor at the state level. I would want to fight for your rights at the local level as well. So I represent everybody, even Seattle. Yeah, you. I don't know. You're pointing over there. Oh, okay.
So, as a gun owner and a constitutionalist and a nationalist to this great American republic that we have, with the loopholes and the, I don't know how to explain it because it's really not my expertise. Can you repeal the 1639 and the other one that had come up next to it? And by the way, I'm carrying now.
So I feel safer, actually. Did anybody see the city of Snohomish by chance? They have this is such a great story. I'm going to definitely answer your question, but I just love this. Is that everyone on the other side is just freaked out over anybody who owns a firearm. They freak out about it and stuff. But in the city of Snohomish, when all the other cities are having pilfering and rioting and all this horrible stuff going on, they hear that it's possible that a bunch of Antifa are going to come to town. And about 800 or 900 people all come into town, and they're all packing, and they're all protecting themselves, exercising their open carry rights, and not a shot fired. Nobody came to town. Because it's a perfect deterrent. It is an absolutely perfect deterrent. And what we saw in the Lawless zone was you had even the Lawless people were packing. You had this guy named Raz. He was handing out guns out of the back of his Tesla to everybody that was in there. Do you want to know how nuts it was down there? As I'm speaking to these people, Raz was the reasonable one. He was saying, you're shouting him down. I haven't heard him say anything. Why don't you let him talk? If you don't want to hear him talk, walk away. When Raz, the gun-running Tesla driver, is the reasonable one in Seattle, you know you've reached a new low point. Nuts. 1639. You know me as the tax guy. You know me as the guy who does the tax initiatives and everything. But the reality is, behind the scenes, I have done a lot for a lot of conservative issues over the years. And there's two that I'm particularly proud of. 1639, after it qualified for the ballot, hadn't even been voted on yet, I was able to get the Second Amendment Foundation teamed up with my attorney, who's done an extraordinary job with our initiatives over the years, and we actually sued to keep 1639 from being even on the ballot at all, because it was such an unconstitutional piece of legislation. And we actually got a favorable ruling from a Thurston County judge to keep it off the ballot. Now, think about that. I'm the initiative guy. I'm Mr. Let the people vote. But these guys had broken the rules, hadn't followed the law, and I think that they should all have to follow the law just like everybody else. Now, apparently, the single subject rule only applies to conservative initiatives. 1639 had like 20 things in it. It was crazy. But we won in lower court. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0. They put it back onto the ballot. And so the voters voted for it. Clearly, there's a bunch of aspects of 1639 that are unconstitutional, and the Second Amendment Foundation is challenging those. But the thing I felt really good about is you don't know about my involvement with 1639 because I don't have to be in charge and taking credit for everything. And I just felt like that's just what I do. I fight for conservative values any way I can because that was the life that I've chosen for myself for 22 years. And 1639, it qualified, but I felt really good that we sued to actually try and keep it off the ballot in the first place. The other thing that I feel really good about, while I've been running for office, while I've been running for this, two cities, Edmonds and Bellingham, both of them very liberal cities, they were trying to pass ordinances that said you can't possess a firearm during an emergency. When do you need a firearm other than during an emergency? It was just the weirdest thing in the world. But we ended up defying Jay Inslee's stay-at-home order. We showed up anyway. We had tons of Second Amendment patriots pounding these guys with emails and phone calls, and we were able to protect the Second Amendment while I'm running and reversing those attacks on our Second Amendment rights. So it's not just the fact that I didn't want to just say, elect me and I'll do stuff for you. I wanted to actually deliver results while running. And so short answer is 1639, it's just a bad law, and I think the litigation, will take care of the worst parts of it. So anybody else? And then at some point, I will actually give a speech, but I wanted to actually answer questions first because that's different. My cameraman has a question? Or somebody new? This guy is new and improved. The guy in the yellow shirt.
Well, first off, I think you should know about Defend the Try and Patriots of the Try because we made Snohomish look bad. Okay, you don't know that this happened over there, but it actually happened in the Tri-Cities.
Me.
Just want to let you know that we have true patriots here.
Take a moment and educate me on what you guys did.
The second thing is Jay Inslee came to our town this week and we chased him away.
So happy.
So
heckled.
Yeah,
heckled was my favorite.
We got him out of here. All right. But we have county commissioners in this area that are actually bowing down to Inslee. And, of course, I have a great interest in that. But I do have a question to ask you about you becoming governor. There's about 1,200 appointments that have to be made in this state. What does your first 100 days look like, and who are you going to appoint? Which ones are the priority?
It's a really good question, and it's one that I've really continually tried to stay focused on. One very important thing is that I've seen for 22 years the guys who run against the Democrats, every single one of them has detailed plans on all the things they will do when they're governor. And they all promise you that I'm going to appoint this person, that person, whatever. And they've all lost. And it's eminently frustrating to me to watch our guys run against the Democrats and continually lose. And it's all good. It's all good. No, I appreciate it. I can't do anything unless I win. I can't do any of this stuff unless I win. And what I want to talk about is when you elect somebody in August to run against Jay Inslee, I want to highlight a point, is that the thing I've observed about our candidates in the past is that they've been really, really nice. Really, really nice guys. I've seen them run. I saw them run against Jay Inslee in 2012 and 2016. Very nice, very respectful. And they didn't win. And so I think we've tried nice, and nice didn't work. And I am running a not nice campaign against Jay Inslee because I've come to a basic realization, and that is that you're not going to hire me until I can convince you to fire him. It is a really important point. And I can't tell you there are basic rules that you do when you run for office. And anybody who's here that's an activist knows what I'm talking about. First rule is you never mention the name of your opponent. You don't do that. I broke that rule early on day one, the day I announced I'm running against Inslee. Inslee's the problem. We have a Seattle legislature, a Seattle Supreme Court, and a Seattle governor. Let's have at least one branch of government representing everybody else. And I've been bashing away on Inslee, and everyone has been going, well, you're not talking about your positive agenda, because that's what we want to hear. We want to hear about your positive vision, because that is, again, what candidates are taught to do, is that you never mention your opponent, you talk about your positive vision, and then maybe in the final month of the election, you maybe mention your candidate and you take a little shot at him. And you think that that's enough to actually win. If that had actually worked in the last 35 years, I might be following that rule. But I'm not following that rule because I fundamentally believe that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I want to do something different. And so the other candidates in the race, you're never going to hear me say anything negative about them. And that alone is strange approach to running for office. But my observation is I want everyone who's supporting the other candidates to vote for me in August, or I should say, sorry, let me start over. I want to make sure that if the voters choose me in August to take on Jay Inslee, I want everyone who supported the other candidates to support me. And if I'm not beating up on their guy anytime during the primary and totally focused on Inslee, they're going to have an easier time saying, you know what, that Eyman guy, he wasn't my first choice, but at least he stayed focused on Inslee, and he never really went after my guy. That's a totally different approach to what's going on. The other candidates, they're pretty much clawing each other's eyes out and not kind of following that rule. And that's fine. They can do things that way. But I have run 17 statewide campaigns. And 17 of them, 17 times we've done these campaigns, we've won 11 of them. And running a statewide campaign is really hard. It's hard to even do it once. And I've done it 17 times. And to chalk up that many victories, there's one thing you learn, and that's to stay focused, to not be distracted, and to just say that, you know what, I'm going to get the crap kicked out of me. People are going to believe the accusations. I'm not going to waste my time addressing those. I'm going to stay on the attack at all times. Because people are going to believe the allegations. They're not going to believe the explanation. If you're spending your time trying to explain away what it is you're accused of, you have no chance. And I saw that with our candidates. They would get attacked, and I need to stand up for my integrity. I need to let people know that I'm actually a good person. I think that that's just not the reality. So you're going to hear people say, Eyman's accused of taking a chair. Eyman's accused of campaign finance stuff. I know that it's all crap, but at the end of the day, people are going to believe what they're going to believe. But the one thing I can say, I didn't send $1 billion to Nigeria. I didn't take $5 million of taxpayer money to run for president. I didn't declare whole swaths of people non-essential in the state of Washington. I didn't raise taxes $50 billion after promising to veto any tax increase. I didn't mandate everyone wear a mask, and even if you're in a rowboat in the middle of the lake all alone, I'm not going to require you wear a mask because you're probably safe out there. You just go through the laundry list of stuff that he's done, and they're going to say, yeah, that's all true with Jay Inslee, but Eyman's accused of taking a chair. It was a $70 chair. And I'm just going to be like, $1 billion to Nigeria. $1 billion. Really? That's comparable. That's comparable. So honestly, the thing, and the young man asked me before, how do you address the allegations of campaign finance and all that kind of stuff? And the reality is, if you really are interested, it's on our website, it's all on there, but my focus is winning. And winning the election is something that I didn't know at the time, but I've been training for 22 years for this moment, and that I'm a really good candidate because I know what it's going to take to actually beat this guy. And I think that he doesn't like the idea of somebody who doesn't follow the rules all the time and is willing to get in his face and actually take it to him, because they're not used to that. They're used to our guys being nice. And I think that the best shot we've got is to have somebody, and my middle name is Donald, by the way, is to actually have somebody that doesn't look pretty all the time running for office, but does eventually win the election. And so that's the model that I'm following, is that it ain't always pretty, but that's what it's going to take to win. So anyway, anything else, and then I'll do my comments.
Right here, man.
Why don't you have a no mask parade on Monday while the state is requiring everybody? I mean, something like that would get you attention, and show the people what you're all about, and you need to rise up and get people's attention, Tim.
Let me see. I believe that the lawsuit is the best way to tackle this mask thing. The reality is the only way you can get any attention for what you're doing is if there's a possibility that you can actually affect the outcome. And the opening up the schools showed us that this actually works, that lawsuits actually are ability to do that. Now, frankly, some of the other candidates criticized our approach. They said lawsuits take too long. And I observed some of us are not going to make it to November. There are people out there dying right now because of this shutdown. There are people that are committing suicide, deferring medical treatments that they need, drug overdoses. We need to do things that are going to do something substantive now. And rallies are great, and I'm all for rallies. Rallies are awesome. I've been to a lot of rallies, but I actually want to make a difference. I don't want to just give speeches. Most candidates, they just elect me, and I'm going to do great stuff for you. I want to do great stuff for you while I'm running, And I think that that is a really stark contrast between me and a lot of the other people that are running. They're all good guys. You're not going to hear me say anything negative about them. But I think that when Inslee shut the state down, I stayed out there every day. Where some of the other candidates said, well, let's stay at home for a while, let's wait. And then later on, they later saw that I was out there and say, oh, okay, that's what we're doing then. I think that in order for us to have any shot of beating Jay Inslee, we must defy him every step of the way. And defying him is something that gets under his skin because Jay Inslee inside is very insecure. I think he knows he doesn't know a ton. He knows that a lot of people are making fun of him in a lot of ways, and he has to look tough. And so he's doing it with mandates and lawsuits, and I think every time he does that, he's making more and more people resent the fact that who's this guy? He was kind of normal, crazy for 8 years. He went, I want to say batshit, but I can't say that one. He went completely off the rails when this thing happened, and I think that it's important for us to stay out there, to be aggressive, and I think that I'm not wearing a mask. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead. But I think what's more dangerous than me not wearing a mask is 4 more years of Jay Inslee. So I'm now going to give an absolutely stirring speech. Get your handkerchiefs ready. The tears. Nope. I'm gonna move on. So get your handkerchiefs ready. The tears will flow. It's gonna be a moving thing. Abraham Lincoln combined with Thomas Jefferson combined. I don't know. We'll just get into it. I think it is really, really important as I've run for office is that you always have to ask the question, well, why did you run? It's a totally legitimate question, and it's one that I think is important for people to understand. Because for 22 years, I have been an activist, and during that entire time, I said, I will not run for office. I remembered in Yakima, my hometown. Hey, beautiful, how are you? Hey, she's carrying a hat. Why are we doing this? Oh, you have a question. Go ahead. I'm just going with it. I was on a roll, but it's all good. She's too cute. How can I not answer her question?
If you're a governor, what would you do if you were a governor? Like, would you wave an American flag, or would you just stand up and say, "Hey, I'm governor"?
Well, there you go. I don't even know where to go with that one. It's adorable, though. It was actually cute. My youngest is my daughter. She's 12, and she's my only girl, and she's the youngest. So pretty much, little girl wants to do something, I say yes, because that's what I'm conditioned to do. Whatever Riley wants, that's what I do. So, but why am I running for governor? And I think it's really important for you to understand where I'm coming from, is that election night, $30 tabs was probably one of the highlights of my life, because the previous year, we had been doing this $30 tabs thing for 20 years, and I saw that it was under assault, and it was infuriating to me. And we had tried in 2016 to qualify it. We tried to qualify it in 2017, and we fell short. And so Karen and I, we sold off our retirement fund, and we loaned the campaign $500,000 to kickstart the signature drive for what eventually became 976. And so we went all in. We went all in. And I couldn't walk away from this fight, because in the midst of all this stuff, Bob Ferguson was doing this lawsuit seeking a lifetime ban on all future political activity, and I just basically wanted to fight back against that also. And so for 8 months, we worked tirelessly with heroic people like yourselves to get this initiative qualified for the ballot. And when we get enough signatures in January, I'm there with my daughter. I'm there with Jack Fagan and Mike Fagan from Spokane, and it's just amazing. We're wearing these, orange T-shirts, $30 tabs on them, and so we're just so elated. And so the thing qualifies. In February, I end up testifying against a bill that was about transparency or something, and I'm wearing a red, white, and blue Let the Voters Decide T-shirt. It's February. And so I go up to Office Depot, and I have to get some copies made because I've just lost my lawyer, because the AG has been suing me for so long. He he chased off my lawyer. And so I go up to Office Depot to get copies made of a countersuit against him, even though I'm lawyerless. So I'm distracted. I take the chair out to the car. I come back into the store. My lawyer's highlighted that one. Why did he go back into the store? It doesn't really make any sense. But anyway, I go back in, buy some printers. I end up telling the guy, hey, I also got the chair. He didn't hear me. So I'm thinking I paid for everything. I'm on the phone. But then I go down, and then I do all sorts of stuff, and then the whole chair thing happens. So they crap on me for months and months and months about it. And so building up tension. They're hitting me with everything. I mean, everything you can imagine. And then they spend $5 million telling everyone vote no on Tim Eyman's $30 tabs initiative. $5 million. We had no money. We're in the hole because we still owe us a bunch of money to get the thing qualified. So tension is high. Pressure is high. An amazing thing. Election night, I'm there with my daughter. And as the evening goes on, before we get numbers in, I tell her, Riley, the universe would not be the way it was supposed to be unless you were here with me tonight, because you've been out there collecting signatures with me at the fairs and everything, and I needed you to be with me. So she's standing next to me, and she goes, because I said, this may be the last initiative I'm ever able to do. And she goes, well, why don't I just do it then? 12 years old. Why don't I just take it over then? So, I mean, as a father, this is like amazing. I said, well, you're going to go to Wazoo. You're going to get a veterinary degree. No. She goes, well, how about just after that? So, I mean, she was just adorable. So then we get the numbers in. We end up winning. And it's euphoria. It's just mind-blowing how incredible it was. And I'm standing there next to her. We're about to have victory. And she reaches over and grabs my hand. And she goes, do what I do. And she has us raise our hands. So my daughter, 12 years old, choreographs a media stunt. I'm so proud. Proudest moment as a father. But it's an amazing evening. It's an amazing evening. It is just one of the highlights of my life. And I asked a reporter to interview her for a second just to give her the experience. And he just goes, so what do you think of this whole thing? She said, well, I'm really proud of my dad. I'm just so happy that we were able to do this. As a father, this is just stratospheric. It's just incredible. So we're on this massive high. The initiative overwhelmingly passes, and a couple weeks later, Seattle sues the voters and ends up doing the lawsuit. So they're suing, saying the voters were confused. And Jay Inslee says, I refuse to implement it because voters were confused. And who's defending the initiative but Bob Ferguson? He's the guy who's supposed to protect us. And I saw how rigged and broken the system was, where your government is suing you. Your government that's supposed to defend you is actually sabotaging the effort. Your governor is saying you're all confused. And I said to myself, what can I do with such a broken system? What can I do that they're not going to expect? I'm going to run for governor. So I didn't do it the normal way. The way you're supposed to run for governor is you stand there with your wife and your kids and you talk about how great you are and all this stuff. I went to a Sound Transit board meeting, and I ended up doing this 2-minute comment period. And in the last 15 seconds, I just said, and it's because you guys are so arrogant, that I am running for governor, and I'm running against Seattle's current governor, and that's Jay Inslee. And they cut off the mic, and they just didn't allow me to finish. I go sit down, and the media is like looking at me going, did he just do what I think he just did? Is he really running for? And they just kind of migrated over. And they go, what is your deal? And everything I said that day has been what I've been saying ever since, is that the whole system is broken. It's all about Seattle. It's whatever Seattle wants. It's just such an absolutely maddening situation where you have every level of government all seems to be oriented around how do we make Seattle happy. And the candidates we've had over the years running for office want to say to themselves, you know what? I'm going to see if I can get Seattle voters to see me not as a Republican, but as a good person, and I'll try and get them to like me. And it just makes me so angry because everybody else in the state goes, well, geez, everybody else is working for Seattle. Now we're going to elect a Republican who's going to do the same thing, and they keep losing. So I'm running for office because I feel like I have no choice, that there's simply no way I could just sit back and watch these guys get away with what they're doing. And I honestly believe that the same people who voted for $30 tabs last November, 53-47, those same people are a little miffed at their governor. And I think that there's more and more people that realize that we don't need Seattle to vote for us. We just need everybody else in the state to rise up and get those numbers up high enough where we can offset the 80% of Seattle voters that are just on a different planet. And there's 25, maybe 30% of Seattle voters are just as sick of Seattle as all of us are. And all we need to do is have a fighter that's actually going to get in there and fight for us. So that's what drew me into the race originally, and I've been running just nonstop ever since. And so in August, if you choose me to be your candidate to take on Jay Inslee, I just want you to know that I'm a battle-tested fighter. I know what it's like to be in the arena. I know what it takes to actually win. And I think that this cycle, nobody knows what's actually going to happen. Because this cycle, we've never seen a Democrat like Jay Inslee. He has taken us so off the rails. I don't think anybody really understands exactly how much we are off right now, off the rails. And I can't even call him a Democrat anymore because he is doing things that we've never seen before. And my campaign manager said, you win in August, it's going to get vicious. I'm going, well, 22 years of this stuff, I have a dinosaur skin. How much worse is it going to get? He goes, oh, it's going to get worse. And honestly, I didn't get depressed by that. I got excited by it because I honestly think the more they beat up on me, the more it's going to galvanize more and more support for us, as long as I don't back down from it, as long as I lean into it and just keep fighting forward. So running for office is like nothing I've ever done before, but I'm meeting amazing people. People that travel all over the state. This whole family is just amazing. They're all over the place, following me around, seeing people wear my T-shirts with my name on. It's a little unnerving at first, but it's an amazing thing because I at least feel like we have hope, and that is half the battle right there. Is that there's hope, and I think that we have reason for hope is because the voters voted for our initiatives over the years. They voted for ideas. I'm just asking voters to vote for him one more time. And you're just going to vote for him in November by voting for me. So you're going to vote for $30 tabs because that's what you voted for 3 times. Vote for him 4 times. If you want to make it tougher to raise taxes, you already voted for it. Just vote for it one more time with me. This whole stuff about red light ticketing cameras and government surveillance, you elect me, that isn't going to happen in the state of Washington. Anything that you can think of that says, well, what would Eyman do if he was governor? You can just look at what I've done for 22 years and say, he'll just do more of that. Because that is in my DNA, not because I'm telling you that that's what I believe in, but because that's what I've shown you that I'm willing to do. So I just really, really want to thank you guys for coming out. I obviously am going to be available to answer follow-up questions and everything, but like I said, the other guys that are running, they're all good guys. They just never run statewide before, and I'm just telling you, it is a snake pit like no other. I will close with this. It's actually kind of a proud moment for me. I'm from Yakima. I had just chalked up my first victory for $30 tabs, and during that campaign, I'm 32 years old. I'm young, I'm cocky, I'm got a little bit more swagger. I definitely had more hair, and and there was this legislator who stood up and said, why don't you run for office? I said, the last thing we need is one more snake in the snake pit. And he was so offended. He was so angry. He was so mad. And I remember thinking to myself, I thought that was me being self-deprecating. Like I'm the snake and we don't need more snake in the snake pit. But he took it as a shot on him. But it is a snake pit. It is a dirty, disgusting system. And I love it. I love everything about it. I've devoted my life to it. I love it, how dirty it is. I love it because the stakes are so high. The stakes, our freedom is on the line. You better fight and scratch and claw for it And the thing that politics teaches you is that the other side knows the stakes. They fight to win. They fight dirty. They do it, and they have fun with it. And they've got the media on their side. They got unions on their side. They got business on their side. And I remember people saying, how can you win with all those groups against you? I said, groups don't vote. Only voters vote. We can win because we've won for 22 different years. And one little bio thing. I gave you a promise I was almost done, but I'm not. So I love the contrast because I think it's important to see that I believe that the underdog is somebody that everybody always kind of cheers for. And I'm born and raised Yakima, and Inslee is a Seattle boy. I went to Wazoo. He went to UW. I did wrestling. Wrestling is one of those sports where you got cauliflower ear, staph infections. You have to lose 5 pounds that day. You're all scrubby and dirty and kind of a disgusting aspect of things. He was the pretty boy basketball player. And I remember seeing that contrast in styles between the two of us. And I think the average voter is going to see that contrast very clearly during this campaign. And I think that that's what it's going to take to actually beat this guy, is someone that's willing to actually get into the mud, to get into the gutter, because that's what it's going to take to win. And it's an incredibly proud moment of mine. In 2003, there was a Tri-Cities senator who was a Republican. Her name was Pat Hale. And she was pushing a bill in Olympia to make the initiative process more difficult. And I was being relentless against her for doing that. And she was quoted in the newspaper saying, "You and Eyman are in this big fight. What do you think about that?" And she goes, "Well, you know what they say, when you wrestle with a pig, you're both going to get dirty, and the pig is going to enjoy it." It's true. It's true. I do enjoy the idea of taking on Inslee. I absolutely think that's what it's going to take for us to actually beat him, is to drag him down into the gutter by highlighting the policy difference between us. I don't have to call him names. I just have to highlight all the horrible things that he's done. And that, I think we've got a shot at actually beating him. But we're not going to beat him by running somebody that's never run before or doesn't know the amount of stakes that are involved. The other thing I got to highlight about myself, and it just is an important aspect of mine, and a lot of my team said it's important for people to understand where you're coming from. Obviously, taxes is what you know me for, but there's one aspect of my life that I am usually hesitant to talk about. But my family has a very beautiful tradition of adoption. My father, who raised me, is adopted. I'm adopted. My 3 kids are adopted. And so it's 5 birth mothers all chose adoption. And I saw that process throughout the entire time. I remember when I met my birth mother for the first time, she said, "Are you angry with me?" And I said, "Absolutely not. It's just an amazing thing. What you gave me is an opportunity to be able to live." And what I want to do as governor is to make it easier for women to choose the adoption option, because I think that's something that the government can do. I think that's something that that the government can do, and I think that would have universal support. I remember my oldest son, Jackson, who turned 22 yesterday. His birth mother, when we saw her in Spokane, her girlfriend was saying, "I can't believe you would be so cold and heartless to put your child up for adoption." And I remember thinking to myself, God, what a horrible message that she was receiving. And then that same girlfriend 5 minutes later said, "If it was me, I would just have an abortion." And it's those kind of mixed messages that I think that we need to fight back against. And I just think that I can't imagine my life being the way it was supposed to be if those 5 women had made a different choice. And I think that I saw how difficult it was for Tracy and for Jennifer and for Marilyn, the birth mothers of my 3 kids. But I see all those birth parents seeing my kids, and they have a relationship with them. And my oldest son, when he graduated from high school, he had his birth parents there and us there. And it was an amazing, positive experience. And the more you talk about adoption, the more people tell their stories about it. And for a long time, it was stigmatized that somehow it was a bad thing. When I was growing up, my parents said, it's cool to be adopted. It's cool. It's a neat thing because we chose you and we made that choice, and there's no such thing as an accidental adoption. And so if you elect me governor, you're going to have the most pro-adoption governor ever on the planet. And I'm going to tell stories about my family and all the great experiences we had from it. And it is any woman that chooses adoption, you're doing a miracle for somebody. And I encourage you, all women to consider that and make that your choice. So anyway, with that, I'll open up one more question, and then I will get out of here. Thank you. This young lady, and thank you for the applause. I appreciate that.
I was wondering, I'll try not to yell on this.
I heard all that, yeah.
Okay, and I'm really worried about defunding the police. And can you speak to that? And then, shoot, there was another question. Liberty State, they're talking about splitting it. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
The defunding police thing is just nuts, completely crazy. And Seattle is actually moving to do that, to actually give them less money. And Seattle is Seattle. It's just what they do. But it's not a matter of really the police. They just want to take the money and redirect it to all the special interest groups that get them into office. I mean, fundamentally, it's not really even about police. It's just the latest excuse they've got to fund the special interest groups that get them into office. I think it's nuts. You know, we need law enforcement more now than ever before. I mean, talk about a perfect illustration of it. But also, we need regular citizens willing to protect themselves as well, because you know, the law enforcement's not always able to be there, and we need to be able to protect ourselves as well. The second point that you made about help me out, Liberty State. The frustration people have in the state of Washington because they feel like Seattle's making all the decisions is exactly why I'm running, is that if you actually had a feeling like at least one branch of government was representing you, you wouldn't feel like breaking off. But when you have absolutely no feeling that there's any branch of government that's actually speaking for you, of course you're going to move in that direction. And I can't do any of this stuff unless I'm elected. But the short answer is the frustration's real. The passion is real that people have, and I would ask everyone to channel your energy into electing me governor. Self-serving as hell right there. Sorry about that. But seriously, it is the best way to be able to counter that feeling we all have that they're not listening to us, and that's the best way to be able to bring that about. So anyway, thank you all for coming out, and I will be around for answering questions. Thank you very much.
Hey, real quick. Hey, I want to send this guy off with let's give this guy a standing ovation. You guys, this guy came all the way down. He represents our state. He's going to make Washington great again, to coin a phrase. He's going to bring greatness back to Washington State. Real quick, you guys, I met this guy. I met Tim Eyman about 3 months ago at a lettuce fish rally. He came down over here to support us having our rights to be able to do what we want to do. I want you to know how serious this race really is, and that this candidate right here, he's going to take us to the next level. He's going to get us there. You guys, I have done my research. I have gone and visited, and I know, Tim can't say this, but I can. I have researched other candidates. You guys, I want you to know this is our best chance right here. And he is not only that, he's going to protect our rights. I want all the county commissioners and the city councilmen to understand right now that this is what the people of Washington want. We want Tim Eyman elected as governor. That's all I can say.
I love it. Oh, that's nice.
So
it's timforgov.com. Got to do it. timforgov.com. Donate. One of the things you want to do also, dumpinslee.com. dumpinslee.com. This is really fun. An amazing thing. For $7, you can send postcards to Jay Inslee's office. If you're tired of these online petitions and stuff, do dumpinslee.com. We will bury him in postcards, and you can have the postcards say anything you want. anything you want. I'm telling you, the creativity of people is mind-blowing, and it's been an amazing reaction to it. So it's dumpinslee.com. I am so grateful for the people that are helping, and I just really want to thank you guys for coming out. Love you guys.